Welcome to the football show. It's the football show is where I talk about football issues, trending issues, and sometimes not so trending issues in the world of football, and try to make sense of it. I am your host, Missy Dano Chukwamika. Before we go on with this video, let me give you the rundown of the things that we will be talking about today on the football show. I've got a number of topics for you. One I'm certain you are going to love immensely. Around and for the show today, we have Arsenal. We're focusing a lot on Arsenal today and how their season have been so far in the EPL. The highs, the lows, the pros, the cons, and what I think Arsenal deserves to get at the end of the season. We'll also be talking about Manchester City and the possibility of the citizens winning the league this season. Welcome to the football show. Let me go on a quick breather, like I often say, and when I come back, I'll be starting from the Arsenal. Reviewing your match yesterday between Arsenal and Manchester United, the things I learned from that match, my 5 takeaways from that match, and what I think this season holds for Arsenal. Welcome back. This is the football show where I talk to you about all the football stories you need to know. Yesterday was March Day 37 for some teams and March Day 36 for others. But most teams had their penultimate marches before the end of the season. The big one over the weekend was Arsenal versus Manchester United at the Theatre of Dreams in Manchester. Now remember, Arsenal going in to win the title for the first time in over 20 years, while United are hoping to qualify for the continent consecutively, but this time not for the Champions League but for the Europa League. For all of the subplots that we all had before the match, the big story was, can Arsenal keep the momentum on? Can they keep the pressure on Manchester City, who had earlier won on Saturday 4-0 at Craven Cottage against Fulham? And it was all to play for as Arsenal found a way to beat Manchester United 1-0, the first time in about a decade, if not more, that Arsenal are doing the double over Manchester United. For United fans, it was one of those nights, one of those days where your team seemed like it had a verve about them, but just could not find the way to get the goals. And for Arsenal, it exemplified what Arsenal has been this season, a team that knows how to grind. Now, here are my 5 takeaways from that. And while I think Arsenal will be deserving champions if they go on to win the league on Sunday, the 19th of May. So yesterday, number 1 takeaway is that Arsenal has the 2 best central defenders in the league. Now, you can argue all you want. You can say, oh, there's a Ruben Dias somewhere. You can call guys like Virgil van Dijk. You can put the name of Thiago Silva or Trevor Chalobah, whichever name at all fits your narrative. But you cannot deny that Arsenal's centre-back pairings of Gabriel Morales and William Saliba are the 2 most, not experienced, but 2 most the tightest defense in the league. Yeah, you could look at the numbers of goals they've conceded, but not just that, because sometimes, like they often say, stats can be deceiving. But you look at how they fared against the best strikers in the league, against Erling Braut Haaland, against Ole Watkins, against Mohamed Salah, against Nicholas Jackson, against Song Heung-min. The best strikers in the world against this defense have been neutralized. Again, I'm not saying that the Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes combination is the best we've ever seen, but I don't think you can look past those 2 defenders as the best central defensive pairing in the EPL. Probably other parts of the world you can maybe look at what Madrid has and Rudiger and sometimes Nacho, but in the EPL, I think Gabriel Morales and William Saliba have evolved over time from last season till now to be 2 of the most impressive, astutely defensive, centre backs you can ever have. A typical case in points was in the second half when Garnacho was through on goal and he had William Saliba to beat. Through on goal in full pace. Through on goal and in full pace. Everybody expected that a skillful and trickery Garnacho was going to go past Saliba. But with one stretch of the leg, he was able to dispossess Garnacho and cut down that attack in a very simple way. Now, for some people, it looked easy on the eye. But if you understand the amount of pressure on William Saliba at that point and how a goal in that moment was going to ruin Arsenal's party, given they were 1-0 up, you would understand just how calm Saliba is and how intelligent a defender he is. For Gabriel Magalhaes, he has shown over the course of this season against the best striker in the world, case in point, Erling Bright Haaland, that he can be as rough as they come, he can be as bullish as they get, and he can go all the way to get his job done. Arsenal has conceded the least goals this season in the EPL. And again, guys like Mohamed Salah, again, guys like Erling Braut Haaland, again, guys like Oli Watkins, or sometimes Nicola Jackson, or even Cole Palmer, Morales and Saliba have been very, very solid. The numbers, of course, are there to see. But if you are going to look beyond the numbers and look at the art of defending itself, you can rest assured that this Arsenal pairing, if they stay fit and they continue to improve, let's not forget, both of them are under 25. So it means that these two players have a long way to go in terms of their development, but they also have a long way to go in terms of how well they can get as defenders. So my number one takeaway is that Arsenal has got two of the best defensive central defenders in the world, and this defensive pairing should earn them a right to win the league. The second takeaway for me yesterday is that Thomas Partey is the missing piece for Arsenal's defensive solidity. Yes, you can understand how important Martin Odegaard has been. Yes, you can understand how important, Kai Havertz and Declan Rice have been. Both of them in Declan Rice and Odegaard nominated for the PFL Player of the Season award. But if you watch how Arsenal played yesterday and the confidence with which they played with Thomas Partey at the heart of that midfield, you cannot but notice just how much they missed him through the course of the season. Again, I'm not saying he's the most important cog in that Arsenal system, but his presence, his calming presence there is very important for how Arsenal play, especially defensively. Yes, he did have his lapses in the first and second half. Sometimes he makes kick the ball, which is understandable, for any player in the world. Even Lionel Messi of this world do that. But his presence was calming. And if you check since the return to this Arsenal side till now, how they've played and their defensive rating, you cannot but argue that Thomas Partey is the man. And what's also very funny is that Thomas Partey was supposed to be traded in the season after the acquisition of Declan Rice, but his injury ensured that no buyer came from him. And when he got fit, we were seeing just how important Thomas Partey is. Now, he might not be getting the amount of accolades he got last season alongside Granit Xhaka where they played together, but you can't deny that Thomas Partey, at the heart of that Arsenal's defense, can cause a lot of trouble. And I think that Arsenal's midfield and I think that this is something that has made Arsenal stronger. You see them post that Aston Villa defeat, how confident they have been going forward, how confident they have been defensively. I don't think they've considered up to more than a goal in every match post that Aston Villa season, after Aston Villa blopper they had some weeks ago. So it's saying that if you want to win the league, you need a consistent defensive solidity like a Thomas Partey. Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard have been brilliant for Arsenal this season, but I don't think anybody that has been keen in watching Arsenal would deny that Thomas Partey has been very important towards the tail end of the season for the Gunners. The third takeaway for me has to be the brilliance of Kai Havertz. For many Arsenal fans, and I included, I doubted whether Kai Havertz was going to be as important to Arsenal as many people had hoped he would be for Chelsea. He came to Chelsea from Bayer Leverkusen for a huge amount of money and did not exactly live up to the billing. Yes, he got a Champions League goal that won Chelsea the Champions League under Thomas Tuchel, but he didn't exactly blossom. He did not come into his own as the offensive midfielder that we thought he will. At separate different times in Chelsea, he played as a false nine and did not exactly find his footing there. And so when he was sold for 60 million to Arsenal, I was gobsmacked. How do you buy a player who barely scored goals for Chelsea, a player who, although was the highest goal scorer for Chelsea in the previous season before he left, wasn't exactly, world class in how he played and how he controlled the game? And we saw it. In the first few matches of the season, Kai Havertz struggled for form, playing as the guy either in the left or the right of the midfield, and his inability to influence the game as many expected him to raised even the doubts of conversations even louder. I, for one, questioned why Kai Havertz was brought to Arsenal. I questioned why Mikel Arteta decided to spend all of that money on a player that could not play as good as Fabio Vieira in the Arsenal's midfield. But was I wrong? Boy, was I wrong. With the conversion of Kai Havertz to a false nine, alongside Bukayo Saka, Martinelli, or sometimes Leandro Trossard, we saw a different side of Kai Havertz. I saw a very interesting stat before the Manchester United game yesterday that Kai Havertz is the number one striker that has covered the most grounds in the EPL. So it means that he's running back and forth every single time. Now, if you think this is just me exaggerating, take a listen to the voice of remember when the coach of the German national team, Hansi Flick, said, Julian Nagelsmann rather, said that Kai Havertz have the potential to play as a wing back. At some point, he played as a left back, I think, for the German machine. So this is a player who came into Arsenal and whose start at Arsenal was disastrous to say the least. Chances missed, passes missed. He looked like a fish out of water. But now at a false nine, he is a fully grown adult, scoring goals, making assists, making those runs behind strikers. I think Kai Havertz is that, I won't say the missing piece they need, but I think Kai Havertz exemplifies the brilliant job that Mikel Arteta has been doing with the young players at Arsenal. That's my fourth takeaway, my fifth takeaway, but one that takeaway for me has to be the emergence. Not emergence like it's a new cat on the block, but emergence in terms of its importance to how Arsenal play and how well they attack. Leandro Trossard. I remember watching Trossard at Brighton and I thought he was a brilliant player. But I never imagined in 1,000 years that he will be as important to Arsenal as he is now for them. I think Leandro Trossard is that player that you never know where he is until he comes to get the goal. He's fast, he's trickish with the ball and without the ball, and boy does he put in the work. I love that Leandro Trossard is beginning to, I would say, displace Gabriel Martinelli, because sometimes he can't be disciplined, maybe not as much as Martinelli's, but there are times when he's caught napping defensively. But I think what exemplifies Leandro Trossard from the rest is that he puts in the defensive shifts when he needs to, and boy does he know how to score goals. And my fifth takeaway from yesterday's match is that Arsenal has found a perfectly exciting to watch young team. I love how Arsenal plays. The fact that when Arsenal catches any team on the counter, the team has to watch his back. The brilliance of Declan Rice in finding the right passes, the brilliance of Bukayo Saka in knowing when to run and when not to, the brilliance of Kai Havertz in running behind those defenders, those very tricky, sometimes narrow channels behind central defenders, is brilliant to see. I think Arsenal has the best team for the next 5 to 6 years. 6 years. Now, I might be overreaching with this, but look at the average age of the Arsenal team. I think they're like 24, 25, if I'm not mistaken, from Declan Rice to Saka to Martinelli to Martin Odegaard to Ben White to Tomiyasu or Zinchenko or Gabriel Magalhaes or Saliba or David Raya or Ramsdale. This is an impressively young Arsenal team. And there's anything we have learned over time in football is that when you have a young team that has experienced success as much as Arsenal has, a young team that has pushed Manchester City or is pushing Manchester City to the edge as Liverpool has been doing in the past, you know that this team will mature. You know that this team in 5 to 6 years will do a lot of wonders, not just for Arsenal fans, but for football fans in England. And here's why I think Arsenal are deserving champions of the league. Now, for some people, you would probably say, but Arsenal are top of the table. They've played one game more than Manchester City, right? And that is true. It is possible that City, if they win their astounding 2 games, or astounding 1 game today and the next one on Sunday, tomorrow rather, and the next one on Sunday, that City will go on to win the league. And rightfully so. If they win the league, they will be deserving champions. But you cannot deny that for a team like Arsenal that has won 27 of its 37 matches this season. In case you do not know, Arsenal has a win percentage of 73%. They have won 27 of their matches this season. Now, it might sound not so much for some people who are pessimists and haters of Arsenal, but when you look at the teams in the EPL, the quality of managers in the EPL, the Bournemouth, the Crystal Palaces, the Aston Villas, the West Ham, the Tottenham Hotspurs, the Newcastle United, you cannot help but be amazed at how much Arsenal has come from the team last season that got beaten to a pulp by City home and away to a team right now that are very, very resolute. Arsenal has scored about 22 goals from set pieces, the highest so far in the EPL, and boy are they scoring goals aplenty. For the first time in a long time, Arsenal has two players, and some would say they deserve to even have three players in the gunning for the Premier League player of the season. Now, you can't say Arsenal has been perfect. They've had their moments. That loss to Aston Villa was a big blow for them. I thought Arsenal could have won that one, but they didn't. Still, it doesn't take away from the fact that Arsenal has been brilliant this season. It doesn't take away from the fact that if we hand Arsenal the trophy this season, we would not be doing a disservice to any team. It doesn't take away from the fact that this Arsenal side has matured immensely from what we saw last season. This is an Arsenal side that we knew would get beaten by the big boys last season. But this season, Arsenal hasn't lost. Again, I repeat, Arsenal hasn't lost at all this season in the EPL to any of the big sides. You probably say, does it really matter? Yes, it does. If you ask any of the teams that have won the league in the past, one of the things they always say is, while the big teams don't guarantee you 100 points, while beating the big teams at most guarantees you 18 to 27 points, those big teams and your performance in those matches influences how you feel about yourself and how confident you feel going forward against other teams. We also need to realize that this is an Arsenal team that lost their mojo towards the tail end of last season. Flip that to now, and Arsenal has only lost one match in the EPL this year in 2024, and that loss came off the hands of Aston Villa. They've only dropped points twice, one against Aston Villa and one against Manchester City. They've beaten Chelsea to a pop, they've beaten Liverpool to a pop, they've beaten Tottenham to a pop, they've beaten United home and away, they've beaten Newcastle, they've beaten every team that you want to call a big team, other than Aston Villa, of course. So, while Arsenal fans or Arsenal haters, people who do not particularly love Arsenal and Mikel Arteta, would say Arsenal has not been good, I think they've had a brilliant season. And let's not forget, they got knocked out of the Champions League quarterfinals by Bayern Munich. And you probably don't understand how this means, until you put into perspective that Arsenal hadn't been in the Champions League for years before now. This was their first time in a long time. I think since 2016 or so, where they are in the Champions League. And the first season in the Champions League, they qualified for the next phase. That's the quarterfinals of the Champions League, beating Porto in the round of 16. So with my books, I think Arsenal deserves the league this season. I'm not saying they will. I think that Manchester City has too much in her arsenal, to lose this one, given that they have the mojo in their hands and they have their destiny right in their palms. But if there's a slip-up, any kind of slip-up from City tomorrow against Tottenham Hotspur over there in North London, I think Arsenal will pounce on this, and Arsenal, if they go on to win the league this season, will be deserving champions. I'm not one to be very praising of people. I'm not one to give a lot of hype to managers, but in my books, this is my opinion. You don't have to believe it as gospel, but in my book, I think Mikel Arteta deserves to be the manager of the season. I will probably explain that to you later, but you cannot take Arsenal from where they were last season, a team that I would say flattered to deceive a lot of us, to where they are not deceiving us, to where we have to wait till the last game of the season to decide who the winners of the league will be. Boy, Arteta has done a brilliant job, has had the highest winning percentage of any Arsenal manager in history with 27 victories. Can you imagine? Can you fathom just how important this Arsenal team has been and how well Mikel Arteta has done? And like I mentioned before, he has done an immense job in developing players like Gabriel Martinelli, Leandro Trossard, Bukayo Saka, Ben White. And some of us forget that Ben White was a centre-back for Brighton before he came to Arsenal. Some of us forget that a certain Tomiyasu was a right back in Germany before he came to Arsenal. And right now, these guys are playing out of position, but they are playing immensely well. Tomiyasu was impressive yesterday against Amad Diallo and against Anthony when he came on. We saw how important Leandro Trossard was, how important Kai Havertz has been. So you put all of these measures together. The fact that Arsenal are winning more matches this season than they were last season, and they've won ever in their history. The fact that they are becoming more dynamic in how they play, knowing when to be very defensive and when to be attacking. The fact that young players like Kai Havertz, Bukayo Saka, Martinelli, and Tomiyasu to an extent have immensely improved under Arteta. The fact also that Arsenal are becoming a very astute, probably the tightest defense in the EPL this season, goes to show you that Arteta has done a brilliant job. In my books, I think the manager of the season should not go to Pep Guardiola, should not go to Jurgen Klopp, should not go to any of those managers, no Oliver Glasner, not Eddie Howe. I don't think he deserves it. But in my books, I think Mikel Arteta is the manager of the season. Whether or not Arsenal wins the league this season, Mikel Arteta has done an immensely incredible job for Arsenal. And if you ask me, deserved to win that one. So here's my take. Arsenal have done well this season. Arsenal has been impressive. And the Arsenal, if we all are not careful, if they don't win the league this season, are in sure gurning to win it next season. And I'm certain Pep Guardiola and Man City are watching their backs closely, because this Arsenal, these Gunners are going to gun anybody down who are not careful. Well, thank you for being part of this. You can be a part of this, like they often say. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. This is The Football Show, and my name is Umbesi Daniel Chukwemeka. I love you.